Hello everybody in the sheet metal kingdom. This is Jay Harbert, friendly sheet metal instructor. I love sheet metal and I know you do too. We're going to take a look here at the second drawing in the second project. This is project 2B. Now this project ties into the first project. In the first project you are to cut 4 pieces of metal as precisely as possible, file them to size. Then we're going to use those projects for a couple of our rivet projects. So everything you did in the first one will apply to the second one. And as always, before I jump in and try to key in on any one particular detail, I want to take a look at the drawing and look for any possible notes. Well, the first thing I see is lay out the pattern based on the notes. Well, we got some notes out here around our drawing, and there's some key terms that we need to look at. To start with, edge distance, ED. In this case, we got a rule of 2 diameters for our edge distance. Also over here, we have some information or a rule dealing with pitch. 4 diameters for the pitch. Well, that's good to know, but I can't really apply it yet. I need a tad more data. Well, look at here. We have a rivet part number. And according to this part number, this first digit, remember our diameter is always so important. A 4 rivet is the same as a 4/32 rivet. Well, it just so happens that our handy dandy rulers, and it won't focus, but our handy dandy rulers have a 32nd scale. So when we apply these rules, we really don't have to convert anything. So if we know that a number 4 rivet is 4/32 and we have a 2D edge distance, well, anytime we use a number, a whole number such as 2, it's understood that it's over 1. So we could simply multiply that by our rivet size, and by golly, we'd have 8/32. Now, yes, this could be reduced to a 1/4 inch, but the fact of the matter is, since our ruler, by golly, focus, since our ruler is designed to work in 30 seconds, we could simply place our ruler on an increment mark. I like to start with 1, never measure from the edge of a ruler because the edge could get worn or damaged and throw your math off. It's way more accurate to measure from an increment. So I could start by laying out my edge distances at 8/32 all the way around my part. If I do that, I will have established my fence. I like to call it a fence. I'm going to fence in everything that I'm going to lay out and drill. Anything closer than 2D, well, if it's closer to 2D to the edge, technically it is no good. It'll create a weak seam and the part would not be good. The next thing I want to do is establish what my pitch would be. Well, once again, I have a pitch rule here. It is 4D, so that would be the same as 4/1 times our rivet, which is a 4/32. And look at here, I've got 16/32 for my pitch. And remember, my pitch is the space between rivets in the same row. So I could measure from my first line, my edge distance line, I could measure over on my blank metal. Then I could go to an increment. I'm going to cut 1 inch. I'm going to measure over 16/32, and look at this. By golly, it'll put us right in the center of where that rivet should be. I could do the same down here. We're going to measure over 4D, 4 times 4/32. That is 16/32, and I can draw a line. So that helps us kind of get a good start. We're going to draw basically a grid We'll do the same thing from all directions, and we'll end up with a lot of lines that'll intersect perfectly where our rivets need to be drilled and installed. Now, it's important that you take time while you're laying out these projects. Remember, Mr. Fine Point Sharpie is going to make a small enough line that we don't create a bunch of error by having a really wide mark on our metal. Well, let's look at our next notes. Carefully mark, lightly punch. So once I lay this grid out completely in all directions, in order to help drill accurately, what we're going to do is come out at every intersecting mark, and we're going to take our little prick punch, which is part of your toolkit, and the key term when it comes to that is lightly. See, when you put that punch down and it has that sharp end and we hit it hard, what's going to happen is everywhere you strike it, it's going to actually stretch the metal a little bit. And in doing so, all those tiny little stretches, roughly 49 of them, is going to create one great big stretch, which is going to turn your flat piece of metal into a taco looking piece of metal rather than flat. So when you get ready to punch your projects, remember, very lightly. All we want to do is make an impression in the metal just enough so that we can feel our drill bit when it lines up precisely where it needs to drill. So we're going to lightly punch all these, and if you start and realize my metal is curving, well, you've hit it too hard. Go easy on the metal. Come to me and I'll show you. We'll straighten it back out a little bit, but once you have prick punched and laid out each of these marks, then we're ready to do the next step, which is drill the holes. Now, I'll do a video on showing you how to start a drill so that our hole placement is much more accurate. Now, once we drill all of these holes out, we're going to turn around, take our deburring tool, and we're going to make sure that any little edges that are sharp that build up around those holes are smoothed out. Now, here's a note of caution. When you're deburring a hole, the idea is we want to get smooth edges. We don't want to do this, and oftentimes we may overdo our effort, and we'll run our tool down until we actually remove metal and knock these square corners off. That is undesirable. The idea is just to knock the burr off the edge, not to remove thickness of the metal on those corners. Now, this is going to be done. It shows us two 3.5 by 3.5 pieces of metal. We're going to use 470 AD 4-4 rivets, and our drill bit will be a number 30. And a number 30 is the right size bit for these 1/8 inch rivets. So move carefully, move cautiously, and go step by step. If you need any help, make sure to get me involved. We'll get through these first projects, and your speed and your accuracy will pick up as you practice this. There's some small techniques that I can describe all day long, but it's going to be a lot more effective once you're in the lab and you're able to pick up the tools. So look for some other videos. One of them, how to properly prick that piece of metal. The other thing is how to start and drill a really accurate hole. We're going to add those videos into this conversation, and then you can always grab me for some additional help. Once again, Sheet Metal Kingdom, do good work, be safe.